So I want to get started because we have Eric on call right now, and so I want to get him back to what he's doing because he is calling in from his break. So real quick, this is COVID-19 discussion about sickle cell, and let your concerns and anything that you have, that you want to talk about, let it flow. But I do ask that, of course, we respect each other's opinions. This is not a debate. This is all information to help hopefully disseminate more information to our community. And real quick, of course, I would like to get a general consensus and acceptance for recording this video from each and every person, as that is the proper way to go. So if I can get a aye, hand raised or something from everybody for recording this.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
I'll be
so
double masked up in the hospital because I don't play no games.
I see that. So real quick, man, if you can, I really appreciate you first off for joining and taking a break while at work. I see that you are at the MLK Community Healthcare Center, which is one of our sickle cell centers for people with sickle cell here in Los Angeles. And if you can give us a quick take on whether you've been vaccinated, and what are some of the things that are going on down there at the MLK Community Healthcare Center, because as reports have been reported, that is one of the hot spots in the city. So it is surprising to see you, there with sickle cell. So if you can, give us a little information about, what's going on down there. What is some of the information that sickle cell patients could use from that center down there, and some of your experiences with the vaccine?
Okay. So first of all, I think your first question was, am I vaccinated? Yes, I am. That's definitely what I'm super excited about. Working in the emergency department, it puts me at a higher risk being immunocompromised, and that was definitely one of the things I was most excited for when coming back to work, because I was off of work for a very long time during the beginning of the vaccine, during the beginning of the corona pandemic, because I was unsure about what was happening. Science was unsure of what was happening. So until science got their life together, I basically took myself out of the equation. I came back to work around September of last year, and till then, since then I've been working in the emergency department and kind of braving the craziness that we got going on here, both at this hospital and my other one. With that being said, I think it's most important that I also state that I believe in science 100%. And as a person that has gone to school my entire life and is continuing to go to school, I take research and peer reviewed studies very seriously because I can see the effect that it's had on science and the communities that it is involved in my entire life. And that is what gives me hope in addition to the guy upstairs. So, with that being said, I think that all people with sickle cell should be vaccinated, but that comes as a result of me reading studies, me reading tests that have been done, and looking at the numbers from a medical standpoint of view. Um, when I come to the emergency department and I see the kind of effect that corona is having on the population that we serve here, being mainly African American and Latinos, it takes a really big impact on me when I see a lot of these people and a lot of these groups choosing not to be vaccinated. And I understand the history and the scariness coming from the past and how people would be jaded because there were a lot of scientists who used vaccines to uh, test what was going to happen on these demographics, like African Americans and Latinos. So it's understandable that these communities are worrisome about how it'll affect them in the future. But when I put a microscope on uh, people that have comorbidities or other conditions that could exacerbate the COVID or make it worse, uh, it's a no-brainer to me because I see what patients go through who are struggling with this virus every day when I come to work, and being at the epicenter of the epicenter of how all of this is going down. It's too in my face every day to ignore the science and be immunocompromised in such a scary atmosphere and being on the front lines.
So you've been vaccinated.
Yes, I've had both my doses. It's both by Pfizer. Pfizer and Moderna are the two biggest ones that are out right now. Uh, they both come in two dose increments, so you need to get your first one, and then you get your second one 21 days after your first one. And Pfizer, I believe, is 95% efficacy for stopping the coronavirus, as well as Moderna being 94 or 93, something around that. You don't actually reach that number until 7 to 10 days after your second shot. And I think that's something that's important that everybody understand and um, take into account. A lot of people think, oh, I just get my first one and I'm good and I'm done. No, the first one gets you to about 53%, if I remember correctly. And then the second one is 95, but that's only 70 days after your second dose.
What was your experience? First off, you had the second dose. Now, some of the things that we're hearing after that second dose is like a real big cocktail. So, as a person with sickle cell, how did that affect you?
I actually had zero signs and symptoms for the first and second dose. I felt absolutely nothing other than arm pain, which is what you feel with
It's
every
normal.
vaccine. Yeah. So that's a normal finding. Other than that, I got no fatigue, no chills, no sniffles, no fever, nothing. Nothing.
So, how do you feel now? Being still at the Epic Center, at a place in our community that's really being hit hard. Are you seeing any sickle cell patients coming down there? Is there any resources that we can know? Because all of us could, we're in the city, we're in Los Angeles for the most part. Besides Andre calling from Houston. But is there any information that we could know for that center, resources wise, for sickle cell patients?
Uh, when it comes to coronavirus in general, the most important thing that it I could give as a nurse is if you have any signs and symptoms, stay at home. If you feel anything out of the ordinary, stay at home until you feel like you absolutely cannot. There's nothing at the hospital that we can do other than put you on a very expensive ventilator and or watch you. So quarantining at home is of the most important thing that you can do. Because when you come here, the only thing that we're going to do is monitor you. And I feel like a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people did a test and they say, oh, I have COVID. I need to rush to the emergency room. No, a lot of people have COVID and they have no signs and symptoms. So, in that regard, you're fine. Stay at home, kick it until you get a test that's negative. I am a big proponent of testing So I think that you need to be testing regularly. There's drive-through testing. There's also testing at like your local CVS and Walgreens, especially if you're around people. People with sickle cell, people in general. I think you should take the quarantine rules to heart because once you already have it, it's too late. There's nothing you can do about it. And then a lot of people have regrets afterwards, after that Super Bowl party or after they kicked it with their homies. And bruh, there's nothing I can tell you other than like it is what it is. It's actually quite annoying when people come to the ER and they're like, save my life right now. I did this and now I have COVID. I'm like, okay, bro, that was your decision, your choices. Now you want me to drop everything in my life so you could breathe better, but there's nothing I can do other than put you on a machine. Like, this is your fault. And a lot of people don't want to hear that, and it sucks to hear that, but it's the truth. You need to watch what you do and watch your behaviors.
That's
I
important because we're on the CDC list as one of the highest risk groups, sickle cell anemia.
exactly.
And we're amongst the general population like anybody else. There's not any real priority. And but being down at MLK Community Healthcare Center, there is a sickle cell center there. And is there any resources as far as when it do comes to down to the vaccine? Will you guys be able to provide the vaccine at that center to allow sickle cell patients to come there directly and receive the vaccine?
Currently, MLK is allowing 65 and older to get the vaccine here, and we were actually one of the first facilities to actually allow that and implement that. Next is going to be other people who are most vulnerable. So I expect that to open up to our group of people with sickle cell disease. But as of now, I do not know. But we are definitely working to move in that direction as we have already opened it up for 65 and older. And in that regard, MLK invited first all the staff, any of our friends or family to get the vaccine first. And in that first wave, I did bring my parents, and my parents have both got their first vaccine. They get their second one at the end of this month. So after they do friends and family, I'm sure it's going to be opened up to a lot more people, but it's starting to little steps at a time.
Well, Eric, we appreciate your time. And I sincerely want to thank you for taking your time out while being at work. And we will let you go.
Last thing I want to say before I bounce is it's very possible to avoid this coronavirus. And the very simple thing is wearing a mask. Even before I got the vaccine, I was working here being immunocompromised, and we get weekly tests from our hospital to show whether or not we have COVID. I've been taking the weekly test since a little bit before September, and I've never had COVID. And I just got my vaccine like in January is when I got my second dose. And I wear my N95 every day and then a regular one too. So all I can say is be aware, wear your mask, trust nobody, and be safe. Be safe. Because it's you can do it. You can do it if I can do it. And I'm helping people with COVID all the time, bro. You can do it.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Eric, again. So, Derek, you're at UCLA Medical. Let us know. Have you been vaccinated? Of course, I'm sure you possibly have been, on the front lines. And give us some of your experiences with the vaccine as well. What type, you can also mention what type of sickle cell you have and what you do at UCLA Medical. and some of the things that you're seeing down there.
Got you. Yeah, so I have sickle cell SS. Um, and just like you stated, I work at UCLA. I'm in the operating room. So I have been vaccinated. I got mine maybe about my first dose, maybe about a month ago or so. And I got my second dose 21 days later, because I got the Pfizer vaccine also. So when my first dose, I had zero symptoms, like literally nothing. I didn't even have pain. So my first dose was like that. My second dose, that one, the most I had was in the middle of the night. I was uncomfortable. It was like night, like I'm not even gonna say night sweats. It was like kind of like body aches, but it's take time off and kept it pushing. I went to work. A lot of people, they were getting the second vaccine, the second dose on a Friday, and then they got to chill just, just in case they had any type of symptoms or anything the following day. But for me, I got my second dose on the Tuesday, went back to work on Wednesday, completely fine. No issues, no real anything. Like I said, I was more uncomfortable in the middle of the night than anything. But like I said, after I took Tylenol, I was pretty cool. The way it's been though, like the reason why I even chose to take the vaccine, because at first I was of the mindset like, I don't know, I'm not really feeling it. What's the numbers looking like? What's you know what I mean? Like I just been hearing a bunch of like negative things, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it's gonna do to you, what's gonna happen later on down the line, yada yada yada. So like I was at the mindset of like, I don't know if I'm gonna get it, and if I do, I'm gonna wait until everybody else gets it to see what happens. But then it's like I thought about it. First off, I had sickle cell. Secondly, I worked in the operating room, and we getting COVID patients like crazy. And at the time, when I first got the vaccine or right before it, we had up to 200 something patients with COVID that were hospitalized at my hospital, and a bunch of them were on ventilators. So I'm like, and on top of that, they also were creating a COVID unit literally right next door to me. So I'm like, nah, I'm not, that's out. I'm cool. Like, I'm just gonna go ahead and get the vaccine. Like, I started doing my research about it, seeing like exactly what would I be putting into my body. And then I also thought of like the pros and the cons, you know what I mean? Because I'm seeing the people who have been getting COVID, some of the patients that we have been seeing, they come in, they are stuck on ventilators for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it's just like, that's ridiculous. I also seen people who come in, they've gone home and have come back and have gotten a stroke or have gotten a blood clot, after they've been, they were COVID positive. So you think of stuff like this, is like, what the benefits kind of outweigh the risks, in my opinion, because I'd rather have to get this vaccine. Yeah, I might not know what it does to me, but if it's like any other vaccine, we take a flu shot every year, we take hepatitis vaccines, you know what I mean? We do tetanus, all these other different types of vaccines. Yeah, all the time, right? So if you're looking at the risk, I'd rather have that than have a stroke. I'd rather do that than have come back and get a blood clot later or have complications, because in April, I had to be out of work for I think I was out of work for almost 2 months. Yeah, about 2 months or so with pneumonia. So I just think about that too. Like, damn, what if I end up getting COVID and I have another crisis where I end up getting pneumonia again, and I actually can't come back from that. You know what I mean? So it's like, the benefits to me outweigh the risk. On top of the fact that, like I said, my mom, I moved back in with my mom recently. So she's, she doesn't have medical issues, but she's in the higher risk category, you know what I mean? Like she has high blood pressure. So that's another thing that I have to think about. My wife is pregnant now. So that's another thing I have to think about. So it's kind of like you think about all the risks that can possibly be involved and what's taking the vaccine is I'd rather do that than to potentially put my family at risk.
Now,
Quick
Eric said
question,
something.
Derek. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Quick question for Derek. Has your wife received the vaccine?
She has not. But this is actually one of our conversations we just had recently. We want to do, like, if she's going to get the vaccine, we want to do it closer to the third trimester, because I've been asking a bunch of people that I do work with, like a lot of the doctors that I work around, and one of them is actually pregnant, and she just got her vaccine recently. And I was asking her about that, like, what do you suggest? Would you think that it's cool for you to get it? Would you think it's cool for her to get it? And she was like, I just got it and hopefully I'm good. So far, the baby is doing fine. But she was like, studies say that it's better to do it close to, third trimester, as close to full term as possible. So that's what we discussed, and she's thinking about doing that too. We actually just had that conversation yesterday.
Now, is it safe? That's the question.
Yeah.
For pregnant women, it's safe to have the vaccine.
That's what they say. Yeah, they actually say that it's better for you to get the vaccine as long as you're out of the first trimester. Anything after the, because that's the risky stages.
So Eric said something very interesting that I want to highlight. He said that after the second vaccine, it takes about 2 weeks for you to be completely protected. Yeah. And so some of the reports that we hear is that you can still catch COVID-19 even after the vaccine.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
And that's actually happened to a couple of people that I work with. One of the nurses at my hospital, she received her second vaccine, and she still caught COVID a week after she got her second dose, which was kind of crazy to me. But the way they explained it is you're not fully covered until about 2 weeks or so after you get that second vaccine. So you still got to take your precaution. You still got to, you can't just, after you get your second dose, you can't just turn up and think you straight until.
But you was in Atlanta
until after 10 days after you do it, which I passed my 10 days. I felt like I was cool. But that's what I'm hearing. There's 2 different people that caught it literally right after they got their second dose, which is kind of crazy. But I haven't heard of anybody after that second week, after they passed the second week, that actually have contracted it that I know of personally.
Okay. I want to bring in Anthony real quick because everybody might be interested on this. Anthony, what type of sickle cell do you have for A? And have you had COVID-19?
What's up, everybody? So yeah, I have sickle beta thal negative. And yes, I have had COVID. It's like Eric says, you gotta not trust anyone. So I've been pretty much isolating for the longest. Matter of fact, I was having anxiety because of the whole thing of COVID, the least little thing, I would be driving home from work and checking my temperature and just really trying to isolate. And the one time I let my cousin come by, I ended up getting COVID at my house. So I'm like, all right, so this is crazy. I just quarantined and did everything I could to not pass it to anyone else. And I actually quarantined over the estimated time frame. But yeah, it was interesting.
How did it, make you feel as far as dealing with sickle cell and pain and things like that?
Well, like I didn't have all of, everyone doesn't always get all the symptoms. So there's like a list of them. My symptoms at the time included diarrhea, the body aches, the headaches, and the fever. I had a really high fever, like 103. I had body aches, like my joints would hurt, like everything would hurt. And then the diarrhea was pretty severe, which ended up leading me to, after getting over COVID, to having just a regular sickle cell crisis. So
Wow. So what type of things did you do while having COVID, going through, diarrhea? Those things can be really serious for a person with sickle cell, 103 fever. Some of us may not have spleens or kidneys or things like that. So what type of things did you precautionary, take to be proactive? Was it fluids? Obviously rest. What type of things did you do?
well, definitely rest was very important. Fluids, plenty of fluids, nonstop fluids. Even when I had COVID, I tried to drink as much as I could. I know one of the biggest things they have out there really helps is to just eat soup, drink tea, just with a lot of liquids, as much as you can, and stay with your hot packs. Try to get as comfortable as possible. Try to move around a little bit because you don't want to stay too still. And even try to get some sunlight. Go outside when you can, when you do start to feel a little better. Even though like you're gonna feel a little miserable for a while, you're gonna feel like you're gonna just kind of like lay down and curl up, which is good because you definitely do want to rest. But you should also try to sit up when you can, because you don't want any type of like phlegm or anything to like just sit in your chest, even though it's
Now,
gonna be a
based
dry
on
cough.
that, so based on catching COVID and dealing with it, going into a crisis afterwards, how do you feel about the vaccine?
I mean, if I had the vaccine before time, I would have got it. Honestly, I know people had so many things that they said, like, you never know. You could end up with like, I know people are like talking about superpowers or whatever the case may be. Like, and I'm just joking, but like, I would have definitely taken the vaccine if I had it available, just to kind of ease my mind a little bit. Because I know even just driving to work and being around everybody, like masked up and all that, I still would have like little things like, like just little things like, am I getting a fever, or do I have a cough or a sniffle or something like that, even if it's just an allergy.
Okay, so Andre, you being in Houston, totally different state. Let us know what type of sickle cell do you have, and what do you do in Houston? I know that you're a social worker, but give us some of the routines that you have, and how is COVID affecting, your work, your life, and have you been vaccinated?
Okay, so first of all, it's nice to meet all of you. This is my first time being on any panels with any of you. So my name is Andre Harris. I currently live in Austin, Texas, interning at the state capitol. I'm an intern for State Representative Jarvis Johnson, who represents District 139 in Texas for Houston. But I also am a graduate student at the University of Houston's Graduate College of Social Work. I'm in their MSW PhD program. So once I finish this internship in Austin, I'll be back in Houston. I moved, it's black tiredness. But I just moved here from North Carolina. Like Jasper said, I am still a social work student, but I'm an undergraduate trained social worker. And so for me, because I work basically in politics, it's been very hard. Well, first of all, it's been hard as a graduate student in the midst of COVID, because I cannot stand online learning. And my first semester in grad school last semester was fully on Zoom and Microsoft Teams, and I hated it. Luckily, thanks be to God, I got a 3.9 GPA. I don't know how I did that. Have no idea how, because I don't remember a damn thing that I did in fall semester. I hope my professors won't hear that, but so COVID has definitely impacted my graduate education. It's impacted my internship experience. Because of COVID, we have a policy that I can't work in the office more than 3 days a week. So most weeks I work in person, maybe twice. This week was like the first time I actually worked 3 days a week. So it's hard to do that kind of work. I'm not sure if anybody has worked in politics before, but there are no office hours. Whenever my representative needs something, he will call or text me. It doesn't matter what time, doesn't matter what day. I could be in church, which I'm not in church, but it doesn't matter. He's going to call because he needs something done. Before I got on this call, I was on a call with him on my off day. So it has definitely impacted my internship experience. To answer the vaccination question, I received my first dose of the Moderna vaccine on Inauguration Day, actually. So next week I'll be due for my second dose. I don't want to say I'm concerned, but I am concerned because Texas is I actually envy y'all because California is not as bad as Texas, but Texas is tripping, and we're not really sure about the allocation of the doses and things like that. So hopefully I'll be getting my second dose next week. I'll let you all know about that. But
So
Texas is missing
Texas
doses.
is missing doses in Texas. And how are they like with the mask requirements and things like that? Do you see a lot of people wearing masks, or is it like Atlanta where Derek just came from, where it's
Yeah.
like it doesn't
Well,
exist here?
yeah, well, I don't think the state of Texas really takes it serious. Houston definitely is wide open. Our mayor was in an open Twitter battle with Bow Wow, like last week because he had a party in Houston and not one soul was wearing a mask. Um, I went to Dallas for a business meeting last week. They're wide open. Here in Austin is pretty wide open. For the most part, people wear masks, but for it to be in the middle of a global pandemic, the state of Texas is definitely wide open. It's definitely a culture shock from um, where I lived in a smaller city in North Carolina, and we were definitely a lot more restricted than it is here in Texas.
So as a person with sickle cell, I mean, how are you protecting yourself under those conditions?
I stay, I stay to myself. I go, luckily, where I'm interning here in Austin, in the building that I'm in, it's like a 30-story skyrise, and there's a Target on the first level. So most of the time, I don't even have to leave. If I'm not working in the office, there's some days I don't even have to leave my building. If I need to go shopping, a Target's downstairs. But I really try to stay to myself. Here or there I may go like to brunch or whatever with friends that I trust, but we still sit, a little far away. I don't take my mask off till my food get there and I eat and then I put my mask back on. I try to be as cautious as I can. But for the most part, since March, I have been very restrictive and very to myself because I'm not again, I'm just meeting all of you. I'm not sure of your individual stories, but I've had acute chest syndrome two or three times. I've been on ventilators before. I've been in an induced comas, in an induced coma, and didn't know, of course, until I got taken out of a coma. 2 or 3 weeks later, and a whole almost month is gone from my life. I don't want to have to go through that again if I could help it. With sickle cell, it's unpredictable and, you could do so much to prevent things. But with COVID, there's a lot more I could do to prevent me from getting it. So I'm doing whatever I can to stay off a ventilator if I can.
Wow. And I'm sure for a lot of us here, COVID, being a person with sickle cell, COVID-19 has completely changed our way of living completely. From my, like yourself, 3.9 psychology grad student. Um, and I was supposed to have surgery 4 weeks ago, major surgery, my third surgery in a year, by the way. And it was canceled due to COVID-19. There was no place for me to actually recover in my hospital, and of course I'm not vaccinated, so that has affected my life completely. And now surgery is back on for March 22nd, and I'm like, hey, like we canceled it 4 weeks ago. Now it's back on. Is it safe? Do you have places for me to, to be safe, basically, but also being a clinical psychologist, you have to be in the field and internships and things like that. And right now we're remote learning. It's just really, it's not what you like. It's not conducive to how we, want to start our careers. So Francisca, you're down at my home hospital, Long Beach Memorial. What type of sickle cell do you have? Have you been vaccinated? And and what do you do down there? And is there any resources that any person with sickle cell could, utilize?
Hello, everyone. Hi, family. I work on the ambulatory side it's Memorial Care Health System, which Long Beach Memorial is one of our hospitals, Long Beach, Orange Coast, Saddleback. And I'm on the foundation side, as we call it. And so I manage a ambulatory, which is like outpatient, multi-specialty doctor's office. So I have obstetrics and gynecology, family medicine, internal medicine, cardiology, pulmonology, rheumatology, podiatry, sports medicine, and I don't know what other allergies. I can't remember.
So you just
but it's yes, it's a multi-specialty office, and we've stayed open through the pandemic just because pregnant women and people with heart conditions, like people have to see their doctors, right? So we started vaccinating our staff. We started with frontline and our staff, I think January 4th or about that week. And then moved on to like other first responders and other frontline people. And then we started doing the 65 and older, like Eric mentioned. And so we're currently, the tier that we're on are people that are 65 and older and any frontline who hadn't gotten it yet. So eventually, like he said, the next step will be people with comorbidities or other health conditions. So the issue that I'm running into, so my clinic is actually vaccinating people, and originally it was it's like a scheduling nightmare because it's 10 doses per vial, and we're giving Moderna. And so if someone doesn't show up, sometimes the vials, you're getting extra doses, you're getting 1 or 2. It's like a rush at the end of the day, every day, to be like, someone didn't show up, we have a dose, we need to vaccinate somebody. So that's been like the only, it's not like it's a single dose vial, like kind of like the flu shot, where it's like everything is in just 1 dose. You have to draw it, and then if someone doesn't stick to their schedule, it really messes things up. So that's been exciting, managing that. I personally, just like Anthony, I actually also got COVID in December. And so with working, I felt safe at work because we started masking. Like, luckily, we did a mask mandate for all patients, all providers, all staff early on, like March. I think even before the public was doing it, I think I was really glad that our health system was ahead of the curve with that. And for my role, since I'm not really like, I'll talk to patients and I'll front face with them if there's an issue or something, and I'm on the floor with my staff, but I'm not really patient facing. Usually I'm in my office, I round on the providers, and like if everyone's masked. So I felt safe going to work. Like I didn't feel like, oh, I don't feel safe. And I had friends who were like, wait, you're still going in every day? I still went in every day. And since everyone was masking, I even felt safer at work, because prior to the mask mandate, I wasn't masking when like I would go to the grocery store. I would take my mask off from work and I would, walk around. And then it became required everywhere. But I was trying to be cautious, and just like Anthony said, you can't trust anybody because it was from my own bubble. My mom actually got it from her work because she works in like a home, which is, I think their setting is kind of like similar to like a nursing home. And one of her staff came to work with symptoms and didn't tell anyone. So he was symptomatic, then he got tested, and then it turned out that he was positive. And their whole house got it. So the house that she manages, so all their clients, and she manages like people who are like awarded like regional center type with people with cognitive or disabilities. And so all the clients got it, all the staff got it, she got it. And my sister and I had gone to their house to visit, to like cook with her. And we're in the same bubble because it's just the four of us. And so one afternoon she had a cough, and I'm like, and I said it jokingly too. I was like, "What is this cough? Is this COVID?" And she's like, "No, it's just the Santa Ana. It's just my throat." Yeah. 2 days later, I was at work and I just felt really fatigued. My symptoms were the fatigue. Then I felt really hot, so the fever. I had one of those like thermometers for your forehead, and the temp came back about like 98, but I'm like, no, I feel hot. So I checked my neck and it was like 102. Like, so, but did like ibuprofen and Tylenol, did fluids. I think the fever came down within an hour or two. I had a fever a couple of other days, but for the most part, I mean, I worked from home while I had it. I quarantined. I felt like I had some fatigue, congestion. It felt like flu-like symptoms. But I think I was more concerned, like I didn't know if it was going to go into a crisis. I don't know, like I was watching the news and you just heard all this news about people dying. And I was like, oh my God, like, but we all got it. My mom, my dad, my sister, me, her boyfriend, I think his mom. So it was a whole family affair. But thank God we all fared really well and everyone did okay. So when you have COVID, they say you have about 90 days. I think the time frame that they have is you have about 90 days of immunity. So I was going to wait my 90 days, but one of the nights someone didn't show up. So I got the vaccine about February 4th. So I'm coming due on my second one. For Moderna, it's 28 days after you get the vaccine. And so I'm coming due for the second one on March 4th. But yeah, working in healthcare, being that I think like we mentioned, we all get, like we have to get our flu shot, we have to get our pneumonia shots, all those vaccines. I'm not like an anti-vax person. And so once they said the vaccine was available, all of my physicians got it. So my surgeons, all of my doctors who are predominantly white, like, like Asian, Mediterranean, all got it. Like no question. They were all like, when are we gonna get it? Can you make sure we're on the list? My staff, though, there were a couple of them that were like, no, we're not gonna get it. We're gonna wait. So I just seeing that, and then just knowing, I think like Eric mentioned, knowing the science, like there's no way to get ahead of this, especially since I already had COVID. I was like, I'm not going through that again. I'm not doing it again. I'm not. Like, thank God we did okay, but I don't want it to be like where you catch it again and then you don't know, right? Like you unfortunately, the strand that you get is worse and something else happens. So once the vaccine became available, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get it. So I haven't had a question about not getting it. Luckily, my parents also work in healthcare and like service fields, so they also got vaccinated. The only person who hasn't been vaccinated is Belinda, my sister, but she works in tech and she works from home. So, and she's young, 26, so she's probably gonna get it. She be at the bottom of the list, like next year or something. So yeah, right now it's really just the issue with supply. So even with my clinic, we have to go through the city of Long Beach, the health department. We have to document at the end of each day how many people we vaccinated, how many healthcare workers, how many seniors, how many first dose, how many second dose. You have to report it every day. And the issue I had was because I had people coming in for their first doses, I was holding on to doses for them for their second doses. But the way the city is, they're like, if they see that you have inventory, they're not going to send you more. So then my company was like, we had to use up all of our doses. So we used them all up. And guess what? Now I have 0. And I have patients coming in next week. And we don't know when we're getting the next shipments. So this thing has been very, like, I know people are frustrated, like, how come not everybody's getting it? It's really because you're dependent on, like, the city, who's dependent on the state, who's dependent on the federal government, who originally didn't place enough orders and all that stuff. So it's really just a matter of supply, and they're trying to encourage everybody to use it. But then it's like, you also have to take into account the second doses as well. So we used it all up. I would hate to now if someone comes in for a second dose and be like, oh, we don't have it,
Even
So
for yourself, because aren't you're waiting on your second dose, right?
yeah, mine is in August. I mean, in March. Luckily, like if my site doesn't have it because I'm part of a medical group, or my site is part of a medical group, what we did, for instance, last week, I didn't have any, but one of our sister sites in Long Beach here had 200 doses. So I was like, okay, give me 100 of those, and then I use those. So luckily, we can kind of move things around within our organization, but they're still pressing. They're doing weekend clinics for seniors 65 and older. The only resources I can recommend is, for instance, like let's say you have a family member who is, right now we're only doing memorial care patients, unfortunately. So it's like you have to be a memorial care patient 65 and older. However, for instance, when I worked our flu clinic a few weekends ago, at the end of the day, I got like 27 extra doses out of the 20 vials that we pulled. And so it was just like, okay, we were just scheduling people. So you can try to go to a flu clinic, or I mean a vaccine clinic, and see like towards the end, hey, do you guys have extra doses? That's the only thing I can recommend, because like for us, at least for memorial care, they're requiring appointments. They're requiring that you're a memorial care patient. If, let's say, a patient is scheduled, but they want the spouse to get it, we are giving it to the spouse. If people, let's say, went to Disneyland, because they're having the super clinics at like Disneyland, Dodger Stadium, all of those, you can also check on check your health department's website. So if you're in Long Beach Health Department. If you're in LA, check the county's like website. There are super clinics that are happening. And I think now CVS and Walgreens and some pharmacies are giving it, which a lot of people have done it that way. Like they just happen to be there, same situation, extra vials, or people didn't show up and they're like, who wants it? And people are getting it that way. So you can try it that way as well. But yeah, if you're a spouse of someone who's 65 and older, or we've also given it to like their caregiver. The caregiver is like a young person. They're like, oh, I take care of them. We'll vaccinate them. And then like healthcare workers, friends, and family, like Eric mentioned. So, yeah,
Thank you for that
but it's coming soon.
That's the
Of
one thing
course.
to chime in really quick. That's the one thing that kind of sucks is like during the beginning of this whole thing, we were wasting doses like crazy. Like all the time, just doses were going in trash because people weren't showing up.
No.
Like
Yeah.
it was like nobody really wanted to get it, or they're scared to get it, or they would make an appointment and they wouldn't show up to their appointments. Now it's like it seemed like everybody wants it, so now we don't have any doses available. Like our supply is so limited now, but it's like in the beginning it was so much easier wasting, you know what I mean? So it's just like
Shed light on that. It's the 6 hour window once the vial is punctured.
exactly,
because you have 28 days as long as the vial is frozen. Once it's defrosted and it's room temperature, you have 96 hours. Once it's punctured, you have 6. So, and it's 10 doses per vial. Some doses, like I think Fran was saying, they come with 12, they come with 11. It's like freaky, like in there. And I don't know if that's for waste or for, if you push it if you draw it up too quickly, sometimes it'll squirt. So maybe they kind of accounted it for that. I don't know what that weird extra dose is, but once it's punctured, you start that 6 hour clock, and then once it's defrosted, the clock starts even faster. So yeah, it's crazy.
So Olivia,
it has been a nightmare.
Olivia, you could tell us what you do. What type of sickle cell do you have, and have you been vaccinated?
Hello, everyone. I am a nurse at Kaiser. I am not vaccinated. I have been offered it many, 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 many times and declined for simple reasons. It's not that I want to fight the science. It goes back to what Derek said. It's weighing out your pros and cons. That's all the facts you have about the Moderna, the Pfizer, the Johnson and Johnson, or even the one that's still in its phase 2 testing trials, which is, I believe it's the what is it? The Novavax, which is actually going to be implanted under the skin type of thing, which I don't know, that kind of freaked me out a little bit.
No, wait. I want to stop right there. I have not heard of this.
Yes, it's still in its phase 2. It's not been brought out to the mass public, but that is the 4th type you can get. The Johnson & Johnson, of course, is the 1 dose vaccine, but it's only at 76 coverage from getting seriously hospitalized from COVID. So that's what we're talking about. The vaccine itself does not prevent COVID in any way. The percentages you hear are how effective it is against preventing hospitalizations due to COVID. So you can still get it. You're still, I guess, at risk. And the biggest thing that I would tell anybody to do is protect yourself. I'm on the front lines every day. I actually give the Moderna every day right now. And I won't get it myself. It's just a thing that I don't feel comfortable with, simply because I just got married and I want to start a family. And one of the side effects is infertility. And right now with studies, they don't know if that's in men or women. And for that simple fact, it's just as a no-go for me. And I've outweighed it. I've been working in the field, in the face, in patients, 100 plus a day since COVID started, and I haven't had COVID. I haven't been hospitalized due to COVID. I've had a couple major sickle cell attacks. I've had pneumonia once. And it just isn't something I kind of feel comfortable getting right now. I would recommend it to anyone else who is not who the side effects don't pose a threat to them. If you kind of weigh it out on what you feel is best for your personal body. I kind of feel like it's like sickle cell. We all have it, but even how our sickle cell looks to us is different. Someone else may get swelling. Someone else may get acute chest. Someone else may need blood transfusion. Someone else may take a med that you don't take. COVID-19 is the same exact thing. There's too many unknowns for me personally to vaccinate myself, and I can still get COVID. I'm still on the front line. It's like, what is going to change for my everyday? So I'm kind of like trusting God on this one, and in the most serious way. I just haven't found it. My pros and cons haven't weighed out for me at this time. So I know one of the few healthcare workers that are like, but yeah, that's kind of where I stand.
I mean, it makes sense. You know, a lot of us is on certain type of medications that alter, and can affect our fertility. Hydroxyurea being one of them. You
Exactly.
know, for men, I hear, low sperm count, or it can affect your sperm count. And so we don't really understand how that can, the vaccine can also attribute itself to some of the medications that we're on. And if we can have any of that type of information, it doesn't seem
And the
like
simple
many
fact
of that information is even out
is
there.
on a healthcare standpoint is they don't know yet. And they can tell you and they can sugarcoat it, but the simple hands-on facts, CDC guidelines is they don't know, because the trials, the medication, both the Pfizer and the Moderna, which are the mRNA vaccines, which basically mRNA, I can't even say it, is a messenger RNA that communicates with your body to make the protein, the SARS-CoV-19 protein, to create an immune response to protect your body against COVID-19. That's what those 2 doses. At the first dose, like I think Eric said, you're at a good 53%. The second dose could be up to 90 to 98%, which is really, really high to keep people out of the hospital. So I understand why healthcare workers flock to those 2. The Johnson & Johnson at its max, since it's 1 dose, is 76%. And of course, the Novavax is not out yet and still in the trial phase. And in the trials, they only tested 2% of the African American population, and who knows how much of the 2% had sickle cell. So because of the information just not being there, and then they haven't tested people that are asymptomatic but have COVID. They just don't have any of the typical symptoms. They can walk right next to you, look fine, look great, and be positive. And the fact that we don't know how it's the transmission rate. For some people, they can be in your house 5 minutes and you have COVID, and they can be symptom free and you're on a vent. It's so many unknowns, and COVID looks different on everybody, every race, every person. So I kind of feel like with it, you have to weigh out what do you feel comfortable with, and what your body feels comfortable with, and kind of talk to yourself and kind of center yourself, whatever you do to do that, and kind of weigh the risk. Like, Derek, he has a family to think of. He's a new dad, And, you know, he has to think, you know, a different way than I would think and what works best for me in the way that I feel everyone else should think. So I just encourage you above anything is whatever you do, be comfortable with it. Like there's so much unknown. You have to be comfortable and stand on whatever you do and have your own why. You know, I did this because of my family. I did this because of, you know, I saw the downsides, and especially being in healthcare. Like my friends are like, girl, you see people coming out here crying for their family. I watched the people die. I watched them die alone in the COVID unit. When I was working up there, I kind of stepped back because that was just too much death for me on a daily basis. It's like you are in work and you go in, I'm sorry, getting emotional, but you go into work and 10 of your patients are gone, and then their families are in the waiting room. They didn't get to get their last goodbyes. They didn't get to, you know, hug and kiss their family members to just say, hey, I was here for you. They have no idea. And just seeing people die alone like that, it's just crazy. Even people with the support, you know, and it's just crazy. So I just feel like the only thing that we can do, it's still so unknown. It's still, like even friends said, you can catch it from your own bubble. So whatever you do, you know, mask up, protect yourself, keep your immunity up, whatever that looks. Go to your local Sprouts, Whole Foods, get your vitamins, and do whatever you have to do. I mean, that's what's worked for me for the last year of the pandemic.
Like I said, bless you for being on the front lines with sickle cell, by the way. Black History Month, Black people. You know, Andre has his hand up and I want to hear what he has to say.
I know you have two other people to get to, so I'm gonna keep it very brief. But what's your name that just spoke? I'm sorry, you don't have your name on your. What's your name again?
Olivia. Oh, sorry.
Olivia. I'm sorry. I just wanted to briefly touch on what she said because I think it was a good point. Very briefly, because I know you have two other people, but I think before the pandemic, I was a big, as a sickle cell advocate, one of my big focuses were to kind of promote education on clinical trials and studies because, like she said, with Novavax vaccine, she didn't know, you know, I think you said it was 2% of African, did you say 2% African Americans? And no telling how many people with sickle cell, if at all. And one of the objectives of me as a sickle cell advocate was to make sure to provide the education. Yes, we know about the grave injustices that have happened to, we can't ignore it. And when I'm in the room, I don't allow pharmaceutical companies to ignore it. A lot of people give me flack because I willingly consult with pharmaceutical companies. A lot of people think they're egregious. I can agree to some extent. But I think also it's an opportunity to be that voice for the community. So whenever they invite me for a panel, I tell them, you know, your community, the industry has raped our communities for generations. And so, of course, I don't ignore that. And I think her point is valid because with that being said, we need to not only educate our community and the broader community about the injustices about clinical trials and studies and all of that, but we need to show them in order for us to have studies that have, you know, results that we need or have studies that, you know, reflect our population, we have to participate. It becomes a conundrum when we say, well, I don't want to be a guinea pig, but then we complain because whatever the study produces is not applicable for us. It's a conundrum because, and I hope this is okay, because the white folks, they don't mind being guinea pigs. White people, they will sign up for a clinical trial, get their slice of pizza, their little $50 gift card and keep it moving. They will
be happy.
And be happy because it's part of their culture to give back, to be a part. And so that is my biggest passion. Again, I'm not trying to discredit the fact that yes, we have been guinea pigs before, but I know this may sound bad, but unfortunately, we're going to have to want to voluntarily be a guinea pig at some point. Somebody has to in our community. in order for the studies and the trials to reflect our population. And I'll say this at the end, and I know this is kind of off subject, but it's the same thing about when I advocate for more people of color to donate blood. We respond better to people's antibodies that look like us, and we respond to their blood products that look like us. And we can't complain that when we have sickle cell and we need a blood transfusion and we can't find enough donors, from a community of African Americans, that your cousin Pookie can't find blood when you won't give blood for your cousin Pookie to have. So I think that is a huge thing to bring up in this conversation. Yes, we understand that we have experienced terrible trauma in the medical and the scientific community as people of color, as Black people specifically, but at the same time, we have to find a way to get involved if we want to see the Novavax or whatever other vaccine or whatever therapies, even if it's sickle cell specific, to be more beneficial to our communities. That's all I want to say.
Well put. Thank you for that. And Derek was sitting over there just going crazy. So I want to hear what his thoughts is.
Yeah, it is 100% everything that you said is facts, because I look at the studies like that's how I decided. Well, we didn't get a choice, but I was happy to be able to get the Pfizer vaccine compared to the Moderna vaccine myself, because it was more African Americans in it, straight up. It was more of us there, and it was a higher effective rate, or whatever you would call it. Like the efficiency for us was higher than Moderna. So I was like, oh, I'm actually cool with getting that one. Not saying that Moderna vaccine was different or is bad or anything like that, but it was just, for me personally, I was happy to do that. But everything that you just said is 100% spot on, because our community is so afraid to put themselves out there and to participate in certain studies and certain just anything that has to do with more knowledge and more research. We're always the last to jump on board to do that. So as you said, white community, they're quick to jump in and just jump right into the fire. And a lot of times it's like, yeah, we don't want to be those type of people, but that's the only way to get the information that we need.
I want to go back. I want to circle back when it comes to putting ourselves out there. Now, we all have sickle cell, and we've all experienced, a high dose of discrimination when it comes to going into the hospital. And as a community with sickle cell, often we feel like there's no help, period. You get a certain, medication, and they're giving it to everybody. It doesn't seem like we're being treated as an individual or as a person, or even being listened to. And then, yes, we do understand the overall history of these vaccines and what has been done to our people in general. As a clinical psychologist, we study this almost every single day, and it just totally disrupts, how I feel when it comes to the medical field. And lately with COVID-19, sickle cell patients have not been a priority and have not been able to receive adequate, healthcare going into a crisis. We're being turned away from hospitals. And yes, rightly so, because there's nowhere, safely to put a patient in that type of condition. However, what do a person do when they're in a crisis and they have no hospital to go to, or they can't receive any medications? For instance, my infusion center had an outbreak. You see what I'm saying? And I'm supposed to go get a transfusion, or I'm supposed to have fluids. And yet the nurses here all caught COVID because a patient needed his treatment and didn't disclose that, he's been exposed and there was an outbreak there. So then everything is put on the back burner. But a person who needs a transfusion or need pain medications, you can't be put on the back burner because now you're suffering and you're dealing with a certain issue. So Lawrence, what has been your experience right now with COVID-19? Have you been vaccinated? Have you had COVID-19? And what are your thoughts on the vaccination? And how has COVID-19 affected just your health care?
Quick question. For I guess anybody in the medical field, if you get if you're scheduled for the second dose and you don't get it on time, what's going to happen?
Great question.
You start all over. You have to wait 14 days and then you start your process all over. So you start your first dose, you wait for 14 days and you can't get any vaccine at all. That's your numeral vax, your boosters, anything. After your 14 days is up, you get your first dose again. Even though your body, it's your second dose, it would from a medical standpoint, you start your first dose again. Then if you're going to do the Moderna, 28 days after which you'll get your second dose. If it's the Pfizer, then 21 days later you get your second dose.
Great question.
Start all over again. Shit. Okay.
So I wanted to, sorry, Lawrence, before you go,
Cool.
Olivia, is that for just the Pfizer? Because we were told that you can, the CDC recently with the Moderna, you have between 4 to 6 weeks to get that second dose. So it doesn't have to be like right at the 28th day mark. I think they updated where they give a little bit more like wiggle room.
For the Moderna only, you have 4 days before your second dose due date or 4 days after. It's not like months or weeks or anything. Once you pass the 4-day grace period on either or, like let's say the patient can't come on, like if you're due on the 4th and you need to come on the 28th, that's fine. But let's say you can't, you're going out of town and you can't make it until the 16th, then you would start all over.
And that's such a disadvantage to anybody. Like say a person goes into a crisis or something and they can't even get to the doctor's office. That's such a disadvantage to the people.
Yeah.
And then it's the hardest part is getting enough doses out in time. And it's like, we're trying, just like a friend said, like the ambulatory sites all have Moderna. Everybody has Moderna. And it's like, we're running out of it so fast. And it was at first, we wasted. And now it's crunch time and it's just not available.
Wow. Okay. So Lawrence, back to some of the questions I asked you. How has COVID, totally affected your life? Whether it's, trying to get medications, treatment, or just live your life?
I've been taking these new medications for sickle cell, the Oxybrita. I just started the Dagvio this week. So I've been playing around with some things so I can not take certain medication. But like I said, I've been playing with my medication. So how would it interact with some of these medications? Like these two medications I named, I mean, they're fairly new. So, I mean, how would this vaccination interact with that as well? I've been having problems getting Norcos, and that's funny. You know what I mean? They talk about it's on back order and shit, and I don't know what the fuck that is, but okay. But I mean, in case I do have pain and things like that from getting the vaccination, I don't have no pain medicine or the proper pain medicine. You know what I mean? And it's just a lot.
Yeah, that make a lot of sense.
Stockpile. I've been going to my stockpile, like the meds that I don't use, or I was prescribed that 90-day supply, and the crisis didn't last that long. The ones in the back of the, I've been kind of going into that supply mode because it is hard because the med shortage is real. There's several meds that are in back order because of COVID. It's not that the med is hard to get, it's that the ingredients to make the med aren't being transported fast enough due to the COVID delays. So the scientists don't have all the ingredients to make the med, so they can't get to us. And it's just, it sucks, but it is what it is. So I recommend for all, I say you got to have a stockpile of your meds for at least a week. Have them. I don't care. Like, you got to have a week's worth of something at all times, because there's times like a global pandemic where it's unforeseeable. You don't know what to do.
I want to bring in Kaja. This whole COVID-19, first off, has changed the way we operate as people with sickle cell, but also it's messing with us financially. Whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're on the front lines like Olivia, because we're so immune suppressed. We're again on the CDC as some of the higher risk categories of people. So how has COVID-19 affected your entire life living with sickle cell?
Yeah, so actually, COVID-19 has, in a sense, flipped my entire world upside down. So for those that don't know, I used to work at Disneyland in Anaheim for 7 years. I was there, like, that was my life. Like, I love Disneyland. However, we started getting buzz of, this virus is coming out, it's hitting these people, like what's happening. And Disneyland, like, you have people from literally all over the world coming to our parks. So then it really started becoming a buzz when I think, I don't know if it was Tokyo who got it first, Shanghai, but a few other parks had got it first, and then they were shutting down. Cast members coming to me, what's gonna happen? I'm like, we'll see. Lo and behold, our park shut down, closed their gates March 15th, if I'm not mistaken. I'm like, what? They're telling people, don't worry, 2 weeks, it's gonna be on furlough, it's fine. We were on a furlough up until October, September something. And then I specifically got laid off with a whole bunch of other cast members. But to go back, so at Anaheim, in Anaheim, I have my roommate at the time was a flight attendant too. So first of all, how is that going to affect me with her still traveling? The airlines haven't really been affected, but she's still coming home. I'm there. How is our dynamics going to change in the house? So we're trying to figure out that and everything. But our lease ends in May. So, I can't really pay rent anymore because I don't technically have money and income. I'm furloughed. So I moved up to NorCal. I'm in Northern California right now with my mom. And again, never have lived anywhere else besides Southern California. So coming up here was not a shock, but it's definitely been different. And not only did I move, like, I'm in the house. I'm literally in the house because I have sickle cell. And like I think Ann said earlier, like very on edge, very anxious. Anytime I got a cough, a pain, or anything, I'm like, is it sickle cell? Did I get COVID? Like, I'm freaking out. I have the pressure things, the temperature monitor, everything. I have it all here. So yeah, essentially, like, I'm freaking out. So 8 months goes by. As I'm like, people talking about, we don't know how long this is going to be. They keep saying, a few more months. That's not the case. We're coming up on a year now. Are we adjusting to the new norm? So actually in November, I go to Birmingham, which again, flying, I was terrified. Like, I go, but like, I had to go see family. I had all the masks and the scarves and everything. Like, it was crazy. So I was out there for a month, but then even living out there, so I have my grandmother who's mature. She has her own medical issues. Then I'm looking at the dynamics in that house. Like, I have my aunt who works at a high school. And then my other aunt works literally not in the medical field, but she kind of like a nursing home where she goes and she's taking patients. But then everyone's just coming in the house like it's nothing. I'm sitting here like, y'all know we got a pandemic going on, right? Like, I know I'm out here, but like, is this really what we're doing? So yeah, that's happening. I finally came back and still on edge. About a month ago, I got a job at Amazon. Again, terrified, but now I'm on Social Security. Not Social Security, sorry, on unemployment. But that's running out. That's not happening. I still, although I'm with mom, still got to help out and pay rent. Like, it's helping me, but still got to contribute. So that's running out. Got a job at Amazon. I worked there for literally a week, and I'm getting emails every other day saying someone in your section has contracted COVID. And I'm like, all right. So I can't do this because, again, terrified. So I'm just at home, um, trying to make it work. My sister's birthday was literally the day before yesterday, and she had a few friends fly out, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, but now we have these people from 3 different states are now here in our house, and I'm like, y'all know I have sickle cell, right? Like, yeah, I'm like freaking out. Like I literally stay in my room. Like my room is my little sanctuary. I got my water. I go down to eat maybe, but it's been a real eye opener. Um, Luckily, I am very thankful that sickle cell. I haven't had a bad crisis. I haven't had to go to the hospital or had a shortage of meds or anything. I've had a few pain symptoms, here and there, but nothing bad. So, in that sense, I've been very, very thankful. Um, as far as the vaccine, like Lawrence, Lawrence and Olivia, I'm very much on the edge because I am not one. I look at science, but at the same time, I look at my body. So I typically don't get the flu shot, but it's not because I don't want to. The flu shot takes me out. Like it is worse than honestly having the flu. So I stopped taking the flu shot a couple of years back. So now when they're talking about the vaccine, I'm like, do I want it? Do I think I need it? Yes, absolutely. However, is it going to affect me like the flu shot does? How is that going to affect my body? I just have to weigh out the pros and cons. So I'm still very much on the fence. Um, yeah, that's really it. Just trying to get more science about, or yeah, figure out the science behind it, asking people who have taken it, who haven't taken it, with sickle cell, without, trying to just reach out from everybody at this point.
Totally understandable. And I want, I'm gonna begin to wrap it up. And so I want to pose this kind of last question to each and every one of you, um, because it's Jasper House Warriors and we deal with mental health. Um, as people with sickle cell, we already are compiled with a lot of different anxieties when it comes to having sickle cell alone. Now we have COVID-19 and we can't trust our neighbor. We can't trust our mother, our father, the people around us, the people that make us feel secure, our support systems, because we don't know who has what, we don't know where they've been, and ultimately then how that affects yourself. So Anthony, have a person who already has had COVID-19. I know myself. I haven't had COVID-19. I'm hoping to get the vaccine, but I have had COVID scared, where I've had to go to the ER and get tested multiple times in a week, because over the holiday, um, I took the leap to be around family, and everybody caught COVID. And fortunately, besides myself, I was one that kept a mask on. And so I feel like just super lucky. But it turned my world upside down. It turned my head upside down. I became hyper aware of every single thing. Spray that down, wipe this, stay away from me. Groceries are delivered. I no longer go to the grocery store. I haven't been around my own friends. And so, how mentally it's like the anxiety levels is on 10. Period. And so, as a person who has had COVID-19, Anthony, like, what has mentally has done to you, and do you feel comfortable even getting the vaccine, being around people, with sickle cell?
Honestly, after having COVID and like getting through it, as I started to feel better, the anxiety levels went down. As weird as that may sound, just because I felt like, okay, well, at least I may not have the vaccine, but my body has experienced it, and I was able to get past it. And I know there's a lot of different variants and stuff like that, but just doubling down, but with that in mind, and then doubling down on my precautionary methods, like making sure I have a stack of N95s now to go along with another mask, like Eric said, double masking when I do have to go out and do anything, grocery shopping or whatever, and just having different coping mechanisms. So like going outside, being in the sun, and just having that experience. And I feel less stressed now than I did prior to actually having it. You hear so many stories about how someone's on a ventilator, how someone did this and that, and all these people that are losing their lives from COVID to actually having to go through it. Now I feel like, all right, it's not as bad as it was in my head. So for me, the anxiety level has definitely gone down some.
What about you, Francisca?
I think I agree with Anthony because prior to getting COVID, I was more concerned about giving my parents something because I was going into the clinic every day, even though they're also working. And then I took a trip to Vegas, but we were like masked and, wiped down the room and everything. So I was more like, I got tested before Thanksgiving, got tested after, wanted to make sure like I didn't give them anything. And then like right after all those like precautions and being vigilant, then I got it. So then it was like, I feel like I was doing all this time for nothing because I still ended up getting it. So yeah, I feel like the anxiety, I mean, even though, yes, there are multiple strains, but at least I'm like, okay, in my mind, okay, at least I have immunity to one strain. And then I have the vaccine. So hopefully, hey, I have like a 50-50 chance. And like Olivia said, I'm just leaning on God. But I think for the most part, just like washing hands, masking, and just being, wise and not, but too, I think I don't want to live in fear, and when I had COVID, I think it was like a mental trip because even though I was faring okay with it and my family was doing well, you just kept hearing all this news about all these deaths that I felt like it was very isolating. Like even getting like Instacart and getting food and they would drop it off at the door and then you would go and get it. Like you felt like a hermit. You almost felt like ostracized, and then watching all the news about all the deaths, it kind of like mentally messes with you where you're like, am I gonna like die in my sleep, type. But once recovering from it, I think, yeah, not wanting to live in fear. I think going in every day and still interacting with like staff and my providers and people helps, but I couldn't imagine like just like having to be at home all this time. Like it is, we're not, meant to be by ourselves. So yeah, I could only imagine like the mental anguish and things that are, everyone's going through. And, my heart goes out to like, even like Kaja, like you were saying, just being scared and worried. But I think masking, washing your hands, like take the precautions that you need to take, but don't like live in, absolute fear.
What about you, Derek? Having a family, your wife is pregnant, and you are in that building, in a medical building where you're seeing a lot of COVID patients.
Yeah, it is scary, but again, you just have to take precautions as much as possible. Me, I just came back from Atlanta, like we discussed, and I came back and I didn't sleep in the same bed with her. I quarantined I had my mask on the entire time that I was at the house for 4 days before I got my COVID test results that came back negative. So it's just, I feel like I feel more comfortable now that I do have the vaccine, but you still, you just don't know. It's not enough information out there right now to even know what to do, what the proper things to do fully, you know what I mean? So the best thing you can do is just take the precautions that we do know. Like I haven't contracted COVID or anything. I haven't got it. So obviously what I've been doing has either been working or I've just been lucky enough to avoid it. So masking, keep your hands washed, doing all that stuff. When it comes to, like me being around my family and everything, I just try to be super careful. Come home, as soon as I come home, take a shower. Like when I come have my scrubs, throw the scrubs directly in the wash as soon as I get to the crib, like even before I go anywhere, like make sure that the mask is on before I leave or I walk into the house. So just, little things like that. It's like we have to be more mindful of now. It's a completely different world that we live in and a completely different mindset that we have to have. But just like what Fran said, like we don't want to live in fear. So you just gotta take your precautions and go on about your life. You know what I mean?
And I think it's big time reassuring to hear that a person with sickle cell, not one but two, on this panel, has had COVID and has overcome COVID. And we're not hearing these stories. Everything is fear based on the news, and we're not hearing these stories of recovery, especially for people in our situations. For myself, I'm on my third surgery now in a year, so it's not a lot of places I can go. To begin with, I've been this long road of recovery. So for me, it's like, yes, I'm hyper aware of so much right now because I am locked in this bubble essentially, and it can completely drive you crazy. But I'm finding escapes, obviously, in my music and with school. School keeps you busy. Clinical psychology as a master's student, Andre understands being in school, trying to maintain that 3.9 with sickle cell is ridiculous. Absolutely, you have no life. So, Andre, dealing with politicians and, I've been in government buildings and it's just enormously amount of people. There's people everywhere. And it's constantly being on call. How is your mental state dealing with COVID and sickle cell in the world that you have to be in?
Luckily, I don't really have to be around that many people. In my office, it's it's like 5 of us, including our representative. It's me, the representative, the chief of staff, and 2 other legislative staffers. But like I said before, we kind of have a staggered schedule now because of coronavirus precautions. But even when all of us are there, the representative has his own office, the chief of staff has her own office, and each of us staffers have our own desk in separate corners. And we pretty much stay in our own bubble, and we wear masks, and we all drench the building in the office with Lysol and disinfectant wipes and hand sanitizer. And we're so busy working on what my specific representative is doing that I started January 10th. And I have only been in one other representative's office, which was next door, once. And I literally was there for like 2 minutes. So the majority of my days, I stay in my desk, in my computer doing work. So I do feel very, very safe when I do go in. But I'm actually, I feel safe because the representative that I'm working for is no stranger to sickle cell disease. He actually passed several bills in the Texas House last session for sickle cell disease, and he works with the actual Sickle Cell Association of Houston that I actually work for. He's collaborated with us in the past before I even moved to Houston with a lot of sickle cell legislation. So he knows how serious the situation is, and that is one of the reasons why they implemented the staggered policy, because they were keeping my health and my safety in mind. So I feel very at ease with that. Of course, like everyone else said, you never know. You really can't trust anybody, not even your family. You never know. I don't have any family here. It's just me. So I'm basically always by myself. I've had, like I said, I've hung out with friends here and there. May have gone to brunch, but it wasn't where I felt like, it was an issue. I will say I did have a scare back in October, y'all. And when I tell you, I don't know about y'all, but I grew up in church. So I was speaking in tongues. I was pleading the blood of Jesus. I was, I pulled my Bible. Listen, I was doing everything I needed to do. I was like, Lord, please, you can't be taking me out. I done lived 30 years with sickle cell. I can't die from coronavirus. Like I was begging the Lord, please. I woke up at like 4:00 in the morning, y'all, with like 104 fever. And I was like, oh shit, I'm about to die. Like I just lost, like I just panicked. I never had been so scared in my life. And I felt bad because I sold my car before I moved here. So I didn't have a car. So I was like, I'm thinking I have COVID. And I was like, well, I can't call an Uber because if I get an Uber, I'm going to infect the Uber driver. But then I can't not go. Like I was just, so I ended up in an Uber and the whole time I'm like, oh my God, I hope I don't infect. It was just, like you said, the mental health thing. I was really like going crazy. So I'm in the ER and I'm like at the verge of tears and the nurses were just like chilling. And the doctor finally, comes back with my test and y'all, all I had was strep throat. And when I tell you, I was so excited to hear, I think I probably was the most excited person to hear strep throat, but I had strep throat. And even back in October, that was before I was even going out really to eat even. So I was like, how did I get infected? Because I haven't really seen anybody. I literally had been in my room the whole time. So yeah, the whole mental health thing is also a very valid topic. And I actually, with me being a student at University of Houston, it's a big university. Well, I guess I should say bigger than what I'm used to. I graduated undergrad from a smaller public HBCU in North Carolina that did not have the fraction of the resources that I have at my grad school. And we get free counseling through, our student services fee. So I get to see a counselor, a therapist. And so, man, I'm telling you, I'm telling everybody, you need to see a therapist. Like during COVID, a lot of people have lost a lot of friends, a lot of family. And even if you haven't, just staying at home all day, every day during quarantine, or just thinking you may have gotten infected, but you ain't, or whatever it may be, or even if you have gotten infected, it still may take a toll. And so as a social worker, it would be lost on me not to talk about mental health, even though I'm more of a political social worker. It is, I think it can't be lost on me to mention that mental health is very important. And we have to take advantage of those resources. So if you all have like employee assistance programs or whatever it is, and you have access to a therapist, definitely take advantage of it. And whoever may listen to this, definitely take advantage of a therapist if you can, because during this pandemic and even afterwards, the residual effects will affect us. And we don't know how long it will affect us and what it will do to affect us. And so I definitely urge everyone to see a therapist during this time.
That's very well said. And so, Olivia, speaking on that part, you obviously have shared that, you've seen some things that, can be mentally disturbing ultimately. So I want to know, how are you decompressing in all of this, being on the front lines?
I have a variety of outlets. I just took on some crafting. Like I turned into a DIY fanatic. Like, let me take this dresser and I'm gonna turn it into a chair. I don't know why, but I'm gonna figure out a way. Like, just crazy, ridiculous crafts. That's really been my thing. This is gonna sound a little strange, but I actually like going to the Glass House. It's a place in the hills of Highland where you just go up and you break stuff, and it's therapeutic for me. Um, and it's a bunch of room full of people. I mean, it's a gun range on one side, it's Glass House on the other side, and just a whole bunch of people just destroying stuff. It's ridiculous. But so it's outlets like that. I have a multiple of friends and family. I haven't been in the house, so that's been kind of like my pull. I'm more like, I want to be at home because everybody's at home, and while I'm not at home, like, it's just, man. And then just the mental I guess the push for me is, and I keep going because there's always someone that I talk to, people make me laugh, or I'm having to be light in the situations that are so heavy. And that's kind of an outlet in a way for me too. It's like, wow, if I saw 10 people die and 4 people cry, at least I made that one janitor laugh today. And we vibed on that. And that kind of gets me through. And that's kind of all I got, that and Jesus, because man, he be getting me together a lot of the times. So that's kind of it, because there's this time of the unknown is so difficult, because we live in a time of Google also, where everything is Googleable. Oh, if I don't know how to cook, let me Google a recipe. If I don't know how to play, I can do that. But this situation, there is no facts to Google. There is no information out there in a sense that can give us all the answers that we have. So it's kind of like you got to find something to kind of get your emotions at ease, whatever that may be.
Yes, Lawrence, I'm gonna come to you now. 6 degrees of separation. How you feeling over there?
Oh man. Well, I think we all had the scares. Uh, the thing I do every year for Thanksgiving, I didn't do, and I'm glad I didn't, because everybody there got COVID because somebody else brought it in. New Year's, same thing. They had a New Year's party and somebody else brought it in, and I avoided that as well. But my physical health and having uncertainty about it is fucking with my mental health. You know what I mean? And because I like to be on top of my shit. You know what I mean? I know my body, and I know what works and what doesn't work, and and like I said, I'm going through this medicine change, and I just is messing with me because like I said, I can't get certain pain medicine, or I was supposed to have surgery too. It's not as major as Lance's or anything like that, but the COVID postponed that. And it's when is the right time to do the surgery? Like Lance is saying on his, should I wait and get the vaccination and then schedule my surgery, or should I get the surgery and then get the vaccination later? You know what I mean? So that's all a mental fuck that's going on with this with the physical aspect of it all. It's intertwining, so to speak. And so then you can't, like you say, you can't go nowhere. You can't do this. You have a smaller circle of friends. That you see. You probably talk to as many as you can because talking is good, but that you see, people, you need that interaction. People's relationships have suffered. Like I said, I didn't go see my kids last summer, so I'm like really anxious to see them this summer. And this be their first year in kindergarten, so I want to take them school shopping and shit like that. And it's all a mind fuck that's going on with this COVID, man. And I hope it is as more people get vaccinated, it will definitely get better. But just like in our community, people are not getting vaccinated. So in our community, it might not get that better or as fast as we would like it to get. But yeah, that's all I can really say about it.
Yeah, I get it. Kaja, finally, last person. How you feeling? Seeing how, you express so many things have changed for you. Now you even living in a whole nother city.
Yeah, to be completely honest, like Lawrence, I've been on a roller coaster. Like my mental health right now, I hate to say it, but it's all over the place. So along with Disney, I feel like we all might have known someone to pass away, or a mom's friend, or you hear the stories, but like I know three close people, well, three people I work with, but I physically have worked with them. Like I know them and love them, like their friends, their family that have passed away. Um, so it's crazy because in the beginning I was super nervous, had to stay home, and then I saw other people get the virus and then make it through it. Then I was like, okay, I feel better. And then going to someone who's passing that I know and love, that has been very painful. Um, to where like honestly, like I said, I stay in my room. I feel alone at times. Like I'm also a very big social butterfly. I like to go, I like to travel. Like even if I'm not traveling, I just like to be around people and creating those memories. And you can't do that right now. Like um FaceTime Live and these Zoom meetings and FaceTime Live, Facebook Live, and then FaceTime. These things are all great, but like, where's that physical touch at? Like I miss being around people. So um, it's been a roller coaster. So I'm with the pandemic though. I just try to look at where's the silver lining. I have got back into school myself. So, trying to stay focused and, trying to push my energy towards that. I haven't lived with my mom and my sister no less for years. So trying to build that relationship back up. So like try to find the silver lining in things, but it's it's been tough.
Well, guys, I appreciate everybody coming together and really just being as honest as we can. And hopefully this can help who's ever watching. This has been Jasper House Warriors, COVID-19 and sickle cell discussion. I want to personally thank each and every last one of you for your time tonight. And please stay safe. Again, COVID-19 is real. Stay masked up, everybody. And, once again, it's on. We'll be talking and doing this soon again. Thank you.